Hi everybody, Pat Huntoon here from Technique Junkies, and today we're going to be making the beautiful leaf tapestry, the shimmering leaf tapestry that you saw at the beginning of this video. We are making this using the SDX 178 leaf group stamp from Technique Junkies, and we're working with watercolor paper. Okay, so the first thing you do to start this process, let me move my watercolor paper, is stamp onto a Post-it note so you can create a mask. I'm going to be using this, just the wild honey. It doesn't matter what color you do it in. And I'm just stamping a mask there. So I'm going to stamp it and cut this out. You cut out a mask. I did this so that I did it on Post-it note paper so that the top of this is a little sticky. I actually have cut out two. I'm going to use one that I used the last time too in my last making of this. So I have two of them. It just makes it a little easier if you're overlapping parts. And when you cut out a mask, just make sure that any place where you have the ink extra heavy that you go inside that. So you don't want so much of the ink edges showing. It just makes it a better piece. So I've cut a piece of watercolor paper to 4 by 5 1/4. It's proportionally correct to an A2 size piece of cardstock. What I'm going to do is take this and put this down, and I'm going to use the grid lines here for this first piece and just tack this down with my magnets. The reason I'm going up a little further is because I want to go off the edge with my very first stamping, so that's the way you do that. So I'm going to set this down on here and pick it up in my stamp positioner's lid, my Misty's lid. So I'm going to start with scattered straw and just ink that up and stamp that. I'm starting with my water brush, and I am actually just taking that ink and I'm pulling it out into the inside of that stamp. So all that light scattery straw ink, because it's a dye-based ink, it activates with water, and I'm just pulling it out to the center of the image. So I'm just kind of grabbing the edges and pulling it inward to the center of the image. When I've done this before, I did it with wild honey. This is the first time I've used the scattered straw on this, so it's very light, this scattered straw, when it's done like this. Okay, so I'm pulling that to the center of the image so I get the whole thing lightly colored. And you'll see with the other colors we're going to use a barn door and a crushed olive and the spice marmalade. You do see the color a lot more. When I did this the first time, I used wild honey on the yellowish leaves, and I didn't like it because the wild honey was too close in value to the spice marmalade. So what I'm going to do next is add a little bit more of this color, scattered straw, to this. And I could do one thing. I could put my tip on here and pick up ink, or I could just use this work surface that I have and put a little ink there and use that as my palette and pick up some more ink here and just add some ink on the inside, the bottom, maybe along the center of the leaves. Now, we inked this once and we didn't move it out of the Misty. It's important that you don't move it. I should have mentioned that in the beginning. So you want to work inside of your stamp positioner, keeping it in position, keeping the stamp in position. Because what happens is now we have an image that's been diluted, and we're going to dry that image. And I also suggest that you take a paper towel and wipe off the ink color once you're done with a certain color, because trust me, you'll stick your hand in it, or maybe that's just me sticking my hands in things. And I'm going to add more scattered straw to the leaf on my Misty lid, your stamp positioner lid, and then stamp that right over the original stamping. So what that's doing is giving that defined color again. Now, isn't that pretty? So easy to do. Okay, so that's the first one. I'm going to wipe off my stamp, and then I'm going to add a second color. And I'll show you where I'm going to put it. And where's my mask? I'm going to mask this one off. Just mask it down so I can overlap this a little bit. Mask it down. And then I'm going to take this leaf and put it in a different orientation and maybe put it there. Lift it up. go back over it, leave my mask in place during the whole process of this. You don't want to lift your mask up, and you do want to keep this in place again. So I'm going to stamp it Barn Red, and then I'm going to take my watercolor brush and do the same thing. I'm going to pull that color out, pull it into the center of the stamp, just to give it that light coloring, that initial light coloring. Little barn door on the side. Pick that up, color that in a little more. You see that? Nice and crisp. Okay, so that's the process we're going to use with all the colors that we do. Each time we're going to wipe the stamp down every time we change color palettes. And we're going to add those 4 colors, and I'm going to do that in sped up time. So here we go. And now I'm going to be adding shadows. So I'm just pulling out a cool gray here, and I'm just going to add a shadow along the edges of some of these. Not a whole lot of them. And I am going to just use my heat tool very quickly to make sure that this is fully dry. So there's no dampness at all on this. This is really fully dry, and this is turned around. Okay, so over it a little bit with the colored pencils. Over coloring on some of this with colored pencils, and at this point you can go back and just make sure that you have enough color on there that'll hold up. Okay, so these aren't waterful, so you can do it that way. So just add a little color where you want. I would not go over the whole thing with color, just where you think it just needs to be strengthened a little bit. And then we're going to do 2 last steps. Okay, so you're all done with colored pencils. Just take a paper towel, put it down, and then we're going to be using Harvest Sunset Shimmering Bliss. Okay, so Shimmering Bliss is a dye-based spray, shimmer spray, and this is all dye-based. So we only really want to go over this one time. This Shimmering Bliss also will give you full and complete coverage if you are not careful. So you don't want to get too much coverage on there. We just want to add a beautiful sheen to this. Now you could leave this piece just like this. I mean, it is pretty enough. You could leave it just like that, or you can mix up that Shimmering Bliss and add this right over the top. And you can see it took it down a notch. And then we're going to dry that. And now we're going to take the Wild Honey Distress ink and my blending brush, and we're going to just go around the edges with the blending brush. Now, that now is done. That is a tapestry if I've ever seen one. Looks very beautiful. I think you can see really well on this one. Nice tapestry. It's just gorgeous, and it's shimmery and it's beautiful and it holds up well. And these are going to make absolutely stunning cards. So that is the end of my tutorial today. I do hope that you have enjoyed this tutorial and that you will consider subscribing to the Technique Junkies channel in the future. And I hope you will give this leaf tapestry tutorial a try. Thanks for watching today. I'll see you next time.